In this video, I'm going to take a deeper look at Hyperliquid and its token Hype. And I'm going to answer the question, is Hyperliquid currently the most investable asset in crypto? And I'm going to do that using fundamentals. This video isn't about shilling something. It's not about hype. We're going to look at on-chain metrics verifiable for Hyperliquid, such as its revenue, such as the usage of its Hyper EVM blockchain. And now let's get into it. To start, let's set up a framework for how exactly we're going to value Hyperliquid. And I'm not going to go through a full overview of what it is in this video because I've done that in several other videos already. However, the main two products that we're going to focus on is Hyperliquid's Perp DEX, so it's a decentralized exchange for trading perpetuals, and then also its new Hyper EVM, which is a general purpose blockchain with a variety of DeFi applications on it. If you want to learn more about Hyperliquid, first you should check out this video I just published recently, Hyperliquid and Hyper EVM airdrop farming guide. This goes through all the top DeFi applications on Hyperliquid that have potential airdrops. And you can check out my other video about the Hyperliquid and the Hype token from back in January, going into greater detail about what exactly it is and the historical context of the DeFi space that it exists in. But for our purposes to start, what we need to know is Hyperliquid they have their application that they've built themselves. This is the Hyperliquid trading DEX, and I think it's the best perp DEX that I've used. I'm both a user of it and an investor in it, investor on public markets like everyone else. And then there's also Hyper EVM. So Hyper EVM is a blockchain compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine that uses Hype, the Hyperliquid token, as its native gas token, and it's secured by Hype. So you can bridge between Hyper Core and Hyper EVM. And then Hyper EVM, if you actually look at it, we'll go over to DeFi Llama for this, it has many applications on it. So it's got a couple dozen right now, ranging from Hyperliquid specific applications like Hyperlend to applications that exist across a number of chains like Morpho and Curve Finance. And the reason I'm kind of repeating myself here and talking about both the exchange and the Hyper EVM layer 1 is because when we value Hyperliquid, or not really value, but we talk about whether it's investable, we need to look at its valuation both as an app that's producing revenue and also as a layer 1, because both of those aspects have value, and both of them traditionally and even today are valued differently in crypto. All right, so we'll break it down one by one. And to start, let's talk about Hyperliquid as an application. So Hyperliquid as not the layer 1, but as an actual app. If we go back to DeFi Llama and we look at the top applications by holders revenue over the past 30 days, so that's revenue that accrues to token holders, we actually see that Hyperliquid is number 1 with $67 million of holders revenue in just the past 30 days. And so in Hyperliquid's case, what this means is it's revenue that's being used to buy back the Hype token. And so you can see in a typical day, they are earning something like $1 to $3 million of revenue, which will at some point be used to buy back the Hype token. That's how it's accruing to holders. You can look at the revenue across time, and you can see that this has actually been consistent for virtually this entire year so far, of which we're almost halfway through. This most recent week is still ongoing. And if you look back at the historical revenue for this year so far, which is almost half over, you can see that it's been relatively consistent and in fact has been growing over the past month, even though the market overall was probably hotter in December and January. So a lot of people are using Hyperliquid. And then if you look at the annualized revenue, you can see that it's about just over $800 million currently. And while the actual revenue to market cap ratio, and again, remember, all of this revenue is accruing to token holders. So, Hyperliquid has expenses, presumably from developers and other people who are using their platform. Those are not actually being paid through this revenue, because this revenue is being used to buy back their Hype token. It may indirectly being used because some of the compensation for contributors is going to be in locked Hype tokens. However, this is all accruing to token holders in the form of buybacks. And then if you look at that compared to market cap, you can do the math and say, okay, so 800 million over $12 billion. it's not the sort of astronomical ratio that you might see in some corners of the crypto market. However, it is a ratio that I think you could say makes this a viable business that would be understandable both to crypto native and to TradFi investors. One important risk that you need to be aware of with Hyperliquid is that only about 1/3 of the tokens are currently in circulation, 333 million hype out of a total 1 billion hype. Now, most of those tokens are not coming onto the market in the near future. However, starting this December, you will have unlocks for core contributors and community rewards extending for about 2 years. So if you're looking to invest in the long term, just understand that there is some dilution coming. And so that's one aspect of Hyperliquid. That's the Perp DEX. That's their flagship application, which is also currently one of the highest revenue generating applications in all of crypto, all of DeFi, etc. Then there's the layer 1. So recently Hyperliquid also launched their Hyper EVM layer 1. And the cool thing about layer 1s is they tend to be extremely valuable. Let's look at the top 100 tokens on CoinGecko. So we go through these. We've got Bitcoin, which is kind of its own thing, right? It's tough to compare Bitcoin to the rest of crypto. It almost belongs in its own category. However, it is technically a layer 1, but let's keep going down. We've got Ethereum, layer 1, smart contracts, XRP, layer 1, BNB, both an exchange token and a layer 1. Honestly, probably the best comparison to Hyperliquid. The difference is that BNB is a centralized exchange, whereas Hyperliquid is, you can argue whether it's decentralized, but it's on-chain at a very minimum. So arguably a superior tech stack than BNB, but BNB also has Binance Smart Chain. So probably the best comparison for what Hyperliquid's building. Solana, layer 1, Dogecoin, layer 1, Tron, layer 1, Cardano, layer 1. Some wrapped or liquid staked assets. Then we've got Hyperliquid. Okay. Let's keep going. Sui, layer 1. Chainlink. Okay, that's not a layer 1, it's an Oracle. Avalanche, layer 1. Stellar, layer 1. Basically, the point being, I could keep going, is that the vast majority of top tokens, coins, etc. are layer 1s. So there's a huge monetary premium placed on layer 1 gas tokens in the crypto markets as one of the most proven ways to actually drive value to a market. And there's a couple reasons for that. First, if you need a token to use a network, then anyone who's using the network, say there's 300,000 users, all of them need to hold some of that token. So that turns into a lot of buy pressure in many cases, even with low fees. Second, those tokens are securing the network, and that creates some inherent value for the token, because if you have a lot of assets stored on the network, you have stable coins, you have tokenized real world assets, you have other crypto native tokens, then suddenly that token, actually holding it and being responsible for the security of those assets, it actually has some value, because if someone were to buy a critical mass of the tokens, they could take over the network. And so it's a proven way to drive monetary value towards the token. And if we actually look at the top chains for DeFi right now, we can see that Hyperliquid is already in the top 10 by using the total value locked metric. It's just over Avalanche by this measurement. And then if we look at some other measurements like app revenue over the past 24 hours, that's the total amount of revenue being generated by applications on the chain, we can see that Hyperliquid is currently rank 2 after Solana, primarily due to its flagship DEX. And so if we look at some of the comparisons here, like Sui, Avalanche, etc., and then we go back over to CoinGecko, then we can see that Hyperliquid alone right now, its undiluted valuation, is actually pretty comparable to those two, Sui and Avalanche, which, as we just saw, it has a similar level of total value locked to. And so if you look at that, then you might say, okay, well, that alone, that TVL alone, the DeFi ecosystem alone, would place Hyperliquid around this range. And then you also have the fact that it has that Perp DEX on top of it, which is spitting out revenue, which is being used to buy back the token. And I think that these two use cases of Hyperliquid together make a very strong proposition for why it's investable, because you have layer 1s, which are proven as one of the more enduring investments in crypto. And then you also have the fact that it has a very profitable perp decks built on top of it, the revenue of which is being used to buy back the token, which again is also understandable to TradFi investors. By the way, if you want a more detailed write-up about this, actually back in December in my newsletter I published, Is Hype's Valuation Justified? 7-minute framework. So you can read more about that here. And what's interesting is Hyperliquid's done very well this year, but we published this at the end of last year. So before it was as hyped, if you will, as now. Something else I want to share is that in the near future, I'm launching something that's going to be designed to help you evaluate tokens based purely on their fundamentals. I think that's one of the most needed things in crypto, is to step back from the hype and understand how to actually look at the revenue, deposits, and other metrics for something. I'm going to announce this first on my newsletter, newsletter.dynamodefi.com. So if it sounds interesting to you, more details forthcoming. Just keep your eyes peeled for emails. And if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.